What's going on, everybody? This is Walt Blackman, your state representative, representing you in the great state of Arizona and Legislative District 7. So, we're going to be talking about something different tonight. And it's a first because we're going to have some folks on here that are going to be answering our questions. And these are subject matter experts. These are the folks that run in the fire instead of running out like I do. These are Arizona heroes. They've been doing this. However, there's some issues that are going on, and I think that you should know about this, particularly if you're paying taxes with this. Now, most people believe or they think that when you pay your taxes, that you are paying your taxes to a fire district. That is true. Those dollars go to making sure that the equipment is up to date, they have enough people, so on and so forth. Also, which you may not know, that when we have a fire and the districts can't take care of that fire alone, there is legislation that actually allows districts to source out to private firefighters. Now, they have to be contracted. Now, the problem with some of the contracts, first of all, they're not allowing these folks to compete fairly. That's just how it is. You know how I do? I tell what it is, and that's what it is. They're not letting these folks compete. The second thing is we're having some fire districts, whenever there's a fire located near a place where you have a firefighter there, a woodland firefighter, that they're going to be talking about a type 3 type of machine. I'm not a subject matter expert on that. These folks will tell you about it. Instead of going to that private contracted fire resource person, type 3, they're going out of state to get the same resources that they could have gotten a mile away. So first, I want to make something very, very clear. I support our district firefighters, our local firefighters, and to include the private firefighters that are on contract. We need all of those assets to come to bear so the incident commander can do their job and they can reach every type of resource that are out there. These folks that are willing to put themselves in harm's way, they go above and beyond, working hard to protect Arizona, protect our acreage. They're not getting fair treatment. And I wouldn't necessarily say this is all on the fire district. As a lawmaker, I have a responsibility, number one, to listen to these folks. I've been talking to these folks for about a year and a half. Also, to make sure that Arizona is safe. And if that means we have to write legislation to put in place these professionals to help fight these fires, then I'm going to do that. Now, some people will probably say, well, are they really firefighters? Do they have the skills to do this? I will tell you, these folks have met the same requirements as the other firefighters that are out there. They are just private contractors. So it's not like you're going to get some dude that watched firefighting.com or how to fight a fire on YouTube or something like that. These folks are professionals. And when you think about some of the bigger fires that we have, these folks are in it. They are doing it. They are putting out these fires. Same token, they're kind of, when these trucks are going out to Colorado or they're going somewhere else and they can see the fire from their backyard, they're like, wait a minute, dude, I've got a contract. I've got a type 3. I can go over there and put this fire out, and then we can save some acres, we can save some property, and we can, more importantly, save lives. Arizona has resources that we are not using. And it is my job, it is your job to hear the truth, to find out what's going on so we can help these folks do this. I've got some folks that are going to be coming up, and they are going to be talking to us about this whole situation. Now, on my platform, I can only bring up 2 at a time. So we're going to be doing some back and forth and And then when I figure out if I can bring all of them up, we're going to do that. Next time, I'm going to actually have them like right here. We're going to be like in a huddle talking about this. And if there's a fire that breaks out in my house, guess what? Guess who I'm calling? These guys. Okay. And gals. So a lot of you may already know her. She is a good friend of mine. This is Molly. Molly's going to come up and she's going to talk to us, and we're going to talk to Seth Larson. I will tell you. Hello. And we'll bring up Dana and Dalian a little later. I will tell you, if you look at Mr. Larson, he looks kind of pale. Mr. Larson and me are somewhat related. So if folks think that Larson doesn't have some jungle fever in him, he sure does. Now, what we're going to do is I am going to let these folks open up. They're going to tell us everything about it. If you have your questions, remember, please put your questions up on the screen here. They'll be able to answer some of the questions. Again, we'll rotate some of these folks out so they can kind of talk to you about these things. I'm going to open it up with Molly. And Molly, if you can kind of tell us the background of this whole situation, and then we'll get into some of these subject matter experts talking about it. And it looks like we've got a lot of folks on. I'm looking at some of my other channels here. So can y'all turn your volume down? I can kind of hear some back. All right. So Molly, talk to me. Can y'all turn your volume down? I can kind of hear some back.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, well then turn it up. All right. So Molly, talk to me. Turn it up.
Can you hear me okay?
Sure can. We can hear it. And then we got some folks that are saying that they can hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
Well. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you very well. I can hear you. You're good. I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, well, is that good?
That's good. I can hear you. That's good. Thanks. So tell us, kind of walk us through how this works. And then we're going to bring up.
So let's begin with the private contractors. I've understood this process for a couple of years. I've been following it as a journalist. Okay, well, is that good?
That's good. I can hear you. That's good. Thanks.
We've got a real big delay.
Tell us, kind of walk us through how this works.
Okay, so let's begin with the private contractors. I've understood this process for a couple of years. I've been following it as a journalist.
That's good. I can hear you. That's good. Thanks.
We've got a real big. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you perfectly.
Hey, Walt, I'm going to go out and come back in.
Okay, that's good. So let's talk to Seth Larson. Kind of tell us what, just walk us through some of the problems that you're going through, and basically have a conversation with me on this issue.
So I'm Seth Larson. This is my dad, Kent Larson. He owns JTS Construction. He's been doing fire about 25 years, 22 years, right in there.
Yeah.
What we're seeing and what I've seen in the past, I'm a second generation stepping into this game. What we're seeing is departments that are being overstepped, and we hold federal contracts with the Forest Service, and resources are being ordered, is the way we understand it, in front of what they call a dispatch priority list. And so your departments are being ordered in lieu of contractors who are in the state ready. I distinctly remember in a number of years ago, there was a fire down the Cherokee National Monument
Mhm.
area down in Douglas, Cochise County.
Sure. Yeah.
Flagstaff Fire comes driving by with the same exact type equipment, a Type 3 water tender that took them probably 8 to 10 hours to get here, and I'm 2.5 hours away.
Ah, okay.
And
Okay.
so this happens time and time again where we're bypassed. Resources are definitely closer, and for a much better value for the citizen and the constituent of the fire.
Sure. Sure. Now, what I've heard this term a lot: Type 3 engines, Type 6 engines. Can you tell us what that's all about?
Yeah, so all your engines and all, or so your engines, your dozers, your motor graders, your water tenders, even your showers, your toilets, everything on a fire has a classification. And so a type 3 tender is from like a support water tender like what we have is anywhere I believe from 999 gallons to 3,000 gallons.
Sure.
Yeah, 2,000 gallons. And so I might be off on the numbers. And then there's a classification for a type 2 water tenders from a certain X number of gallons to a certain X number of gallons. And then a type 1 tender is obviously larger volumes of larger gallons. Same
Mhm.
with the engines. Engines will, a type 6 engine is a smaller, like a F550
Yeah.
type pickup, a Ford. A Type 3 engine might be a F750 or an international bigger truck. There's just a rating to everything that goes to it.
So,
Sure.
so when fire managers order, they get the size and classification that they want. So,
I see. I see. I
so
see.
when you want a size 10 shoe, you get a size 10 shoe instead of a size
Mm.
6.
I see. I see. Now, a lot of folks, I'm seeing some questions that come up. Some folks are asking about the certification for private contractors. Can you talk us through the type of training and certification that you have that matches with folks that are in our district firefighter departments?
So we're required by contract to put all of our guys through a basic wildland fire training, RT 130 and a S 190. Those are basic wildland fire credentials.
Sure.
And so we do those trainings annually, generally in March for our guys. We do fire shelter trainings, like you've seen. We've had some tragedies this year on a few fires. The fire shelter training is something we absolutely have to document and record. We have practice shelters that our guys go out, get in. We have to watch a video, go out and do scenarios inside those shelters to show. But we do an 8-hour course to uh, make sure that our guys are up to the same qualifications. Is the basic level. And as far as we are as water tender operators, and at least mine and my dad's situation, we're support tenders. We are not firefighters on the front line. Dana can speak to that where he's owned engines. The qualifications go a little bit deeper when you start getting to more advanced, more aggressive type firefighting.
Ah, okay. I see. I see.
Right.
Now,
So there's
Molly,
different
can you? Yeah, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Molly. Go ahead. Well, can you
Okay,
walk us
so
through what happens when there's a wildfire and how the company is eligible to receive those assignments? I don't know if that's what you were going to say at first, but please go ahead.
well, how I want to address this is at a 5,000 foot level, we have like the municipalities such as the cooperators, the fire districts, or the fire departments. So it basically starts there. Say a fire kicks off. We want to talk about the Mina fire, which was in Yarnell. Say a fire kicks off. Normally, with that fire district, if they're in a rural area, they're going to have a type 3, they're going to have a type 6, and they're probably going to have a water tender. Say
Okay.
a fire kicks off in that area, that local fire district is then required to go and put that fire out with the apparatuses that they have there with their qualified people.
Okay.
If they can't get it out, then we go ahead.
Looks like we got some technical difficulties over there on Molly's side. She's going to be back. We got Dallin Howard up here. If you could turn on your camera, that would be great, sir. And
Absolutely.
there he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr.
Thanks.
Howard. Hey, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you. We got some folks that are coming in with some questions, and I'll make sure we get to that at the end of the show here. One of the questions and I'll read these questions off to you. One is a question is how does DFFM know whether your engine is available? Anyone can answer that question if you'd like.
Yeah, well, how they know you're available is we put ourselves available through the IROC system. So that's a federally run system. And when the state is trying to order engines, if they are going to order contractors, they no longer go directly to the contractor. We used to have state contracts. Those were done away with a little over a decade ago. And they said, hey, we'll order you through the federal system. So they look for us and our availability within the IROC system, which is tied into the federal response.
Sure. Good. Awesome. Now, can you kind of talk me through and anybody can answer this question. When you're talking about the feds and the state, when we're talking about the contracts, do they overlap? If you're a state, can you get federal? If you're federal, can you get state? How does that work?
I think that's a great question. So my understanding of the situation is we are set up through the federal system, right? And so we go through, if you are engine and firefighters, you're going to go through all of the training. You're going to have engine bosses that have been on numerous fires and spent years and years, if not decades, out there getting sign-offs. Most of them come from the environment of working hotshot crews, hand crews, engines. You know, that's how I came up as well. And so as you look for that certification, you go through the process and basically they will assign you every year into this system. And so when these state resources are trying to be leveraged, that is a different system that does not go through the feds. So I know the feds can order the state, and in fact they do. They order the state cooperators, which is not only the state resources that are provided by the state, but the local fire departments. And so really it's kind of a different qualification system. We have to go through a very different checklist as well as certification process than what the state does. And I think the feds basically look for the state to do that authorization themselves. So there's not always parity in terms of the depth and kind of inspections that take place across those two. And I tend to feel, at least my time when I had a state versus a federal contract, is the federal contracts were much more stringent in terms of their requirements for what you had to have outfitted on your engine, the type of equipment that was really geared towards wildland firefighting. So to me, the federal is a much more robust system of qualification.
Okay. And I'm glad you talked about that. So, you know, Seth, you talked a little bit about some of the qualifications. Here's a question for you. Are the standards different for private firefighters compared to with government firefighters performing the same wildfire assignment? So basically, are the standards the same?
Yes, they are exactly the same across the board. We have to meet the same requirements of anybody that's on a federal fire as well.
Okay. And anybody can answer this one. Is there a system showing whether your resources are available, committed, or out-serviced already assigned?
Well, and so that's going to be the IROC system that we talked about. However, because we are here to save the taxpayer money and to provide a service, right? This is supposed to be a process that saves taxpayers tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of these contracts. So it's considered the best value system. And so part of that is, yes, you can be showing available in IROC, but there is a standard that you have to go through if you're ordering from the feds, that it doesn't matter if you may be a closer resource. You are going to go down that list, and that takes a lot of time. And so us not having direct contracts with the state means that they're having to go through that system, and they're having to go through what is a pre-ranking regardless of the conditions. So you
Ah,
can't see who's available, but just because you're showing available, we had 7 engines. When the pipeline fire took out a whole bunch of homes in my community over in Flagstaff, Arizona, we had 7 pieces of equipment that were right there. All of our firefighters were at the station. And we're talking literally within a half mile of our station. We were in an area that was being evacuated. I knew the IC on that fire. We could not get a resource order. So we had to, under our own liability and taking a risk to ourselves, go and save our neighbor's house. And we saved multiple houses, and we could have saved a lot more if there was a way to have gotten that call out. So, it
wow.
does have real world implications regardless of who you know, because it's a very bureaucratic system when you're having to, from the state's perspective, go into the federal resource ordering.
Exactly. We got to get out of your way. Now, when you're talking about taxpayer dollars, I was doing some research. So in 2011, the Willow Fire, it burned about a little over 538,000 acres. So JLBC, the Joint Legislative Budget Council, they do all the math on what costs in Arizona, and they estimated that fire, without using the proper resources that we have in Arizona, actually cost the state $2.8 billion. And that's not talking about the other stuff that goes into it. And then you were talking about Coconino and the correction. That was the Coconino fire. And then there was a flood that when the fire was put out, and it came from the upper Rio de Flag watershed area, that cost Flagstaff $535 million. And then when it got to the state, $2.8 billion in economic impact. So there is a real savings that you all bring to the state when we are using those appropriate resources that you all have put out. So that's great. Molly, maybe you can answer this next question, because you are an investigative reporter, and I know that the work you do is awesome. You're like Monk.
Thank you.
when you're looking for some of these things. I want to talk about following the money.
Oh, yeah.
Now, how are private contractors paid? The private firefighters paid? How are they paid?
Well, let's talk about the Viper contract. So I think that's a unique system that's been formulated through the federal government. And I think that Seth and Dylan and Dana can probably talk a lot more about that. However, the Viper contract is something that the state of Arizona could then implement. But talking about it again at the municipal level, talking about the laws that we talked about, say, for example, I wanted to talk about what happened in Yarnell, not the 19, but what previously happened at the Mina fire. So the Mina fire, a type 3 Yarnell fire district, they're trying to make money, and I get it. They send their type 3 to out of state. Well, that district is now staffed without that type 3. So a fire kicks off in their district. What happens? They don't have that type 3. So that type 3 is in another area. So leaving those taxpayers, the taxpayers don't know that this is happening, but it's happening statewide. So that fire, the Mina fire, ended up costing the taxpayers in that area a lot of money. I have all of the numbers and I can send them to you. If a private contractor, which it is in statute, obviously we have the law, could have done severity, when that type 3 leapt, they probably could have walked out there and literally taken a shovel and put that little fire out when it was little. Money wise, at a municipal level, the fire department or the fire district would then pay the private contractor for their time, for their severity. And then we'll go up to the 5,000 foot level. Let's go up to that little fire now creates an incident. We have incident type 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We obviously pray it's not going to turn into a 1 or a 2.
Yeah.
Then the incident management comes in. And that's where we have an issue where we have boundaries: federal land, state land, private land. On a state fire, say for example, it's a type 3 incident. That incident manager is going to if it's on state land, they're not going to call these private contractors. Now, I believe there is a dozer that I talked to. The dozer works with state fire, but not these gentlemen here that have put so much money into their business. And it's terrible because, like Dylan said, he was just right there at the pipeline fire. I know, I've researched that pipeline fire. I'm telling you, that could have been put out prior to a major incident. Then, of course, the fire at the Grand Canyon, that's the same thing. How many, that was a federal fire. Of course, that's a little bit different. We're talking about the Viper contract over there. But when we talk about the state, they're hiring all the cooperators financially. These three gentlemen here, Seth, Dylan, and Dana, will save the taxpayers millions of dollars.
Okay.
Talk about the Buckeye fire, the Hazen fire. We had at the Hazen fire, that probably could have been done the same way, put out with a squirt of a hose or a jump of a shovel. They had the state of Arizona, that was a state fire. They were bringing in resources from Tucson. And in a lot of cases on these state fires, they're bringing in cooperators from out of state. I think that's ridiculous. And that's costing us over $62 million more money than it would to put these three gentlemen out there on the 5,000 foot level severity. Say they want to send that type 3 out to make money and do training. Okay, I get it. Well, we have to replace that type 3 because the taxpayers don't know that this is happening to them. So financially, I'm looking at least $20 million we can save a year by having private contractors come in and manage that for us.
Oh, okay. I see. So you could probably see that question that's already there. Before I get to that question that Eric has, here is another comment that came up. There's some comments that come from my other platforms that I can see on my other screen. So I want to make sure that I get everybody's comment. Now, this comment, it says, I don't want legislators sitting in Phoenix telling an incident commander which engine to send while a community is burning. Can somebody speak to that?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk for just a second, but I think Dylan might be able to talk about that. This absolutely has nothing to do with that. If the incident commander, say, on a type 3 incident says, hey, we need a type 3 engine, they need to pull from the nearest resource to get that fire put out so it doesn't turn into a 2 or a 1. Yeah. But if they have a specialized thing that incident manager needs, they can go and get what they want.
Ah, I see. And we did have a comment that everybody can see. Can y'all see Eric's comment? I think you kind of answered that a little bit about the dozer. It says, could somebody please answer why the state of Arizona does not recognize dozers? And that's an open question for anyone to answer.
Not my area of expertise.
Go ahead, Dylan. Yeah.
I was just saying, not my area of expertise. I can't speak on it.
Okay,
so the dozer, so you have specialized dozers, and I think Dana probably understands a lot about this. There's special dozers. There's a gentleman that was going to be on, but he had an incident. Dana, can you talk about the dozers?
Well, there's a dozer that just cut a line, and then there's the dozers that have 500-gallon water tanks on there with sprayers and hose. And that's they call them pumper cats, and they're using them quite a bit. And that's what the state is asking for right now is the pumper dozers to take care of a lot of their river bottom fires, that it's in Yuma and, Buckeye area. They really work well with that. So that's kind of where I think it's a specialized deal for the state that has to have that pumper dozer.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah, and they have the dozer has a fire shelter that comes over the cage of the dozer. It's very interesting.
Really? Yeah. Can you get in a little bit of that?
Dana, do you want to talk about that? You probably are more skilled.
Some dozers, some don't, but that's all required that there's a cage. And I think the new contract came out last year that you got to have fire curtains, and it's curtains that come down that kind of keep the heat away from you.
Okay.
But that's a specialized equipment, and again, they spend thousands of dollars to upgrade these dozers just for the fire service, on there. So they're kind of in the same boat as we are with engines and tenders, So
Do you
all
think
are
that he means
ahead.
they don't recognize dozers as in qualifications?
They, yeah, I don't know. Every other state has dozers, especially a lot of the state agencies out of state. They have little dozers they throw on a flatbed, truck, and they go around and run a circle around these small fires. And then when the engines get there, they run and mop everything up. We're in North Carolina and stuff like that. Those things are just, they run out there, unload, draw the line, get on, and go to the next one. They're really, really practical. Cal Fire has them. So there's a lot of states that utilize dozers constantly.
Okay, you all are getting a lot of questions on my second screen here. Here's another one, and anyone can answer this. It says, okay, so if an engine, and I'm supposing that's one of the piece of equipment you all use, if an Arizona engine is 40 miles from an incident and the equivalent engine comes hundreds of miles from another state, what is the potential cost to taxpayers in Arizona?
That's what I'm saying. Is it is an exorbitant amount of money to bring an engine from, say, Oregon, and that is what Dylan was talking about. He was sitting at the pipeline fire. Dylan has beautiful equipment, way better than a lot of cooperators. And so he sat there at the pipeline fire while engines, type 3s, type 6s from out of state were coming in. It's at least double. When he could have went there, and he could, I mean, he literally was right there, and he probably could have went home and slept in his own bed. We didn't have to pay for a hotel for him. Well, a lot of guys do sleep on the fire line, but I'm just saying the cost, answering that gentleman's or whomever's question, it would save the taxpayers. Like I said, if we did this for a whole year, we would at least be up to saving about $20 million.
Yeah. So we're talking about lodging, food, gas, those types of costs actually go to Arizona taxpayers because we've got to pay for those engines coming from out of state rather than
Right.
using the next best there. Okay. I see.
And backfill.
Yeah.
And
Dana can
backfill.
talk about that. The gas.
Can you talk about that?
What, the gas?
Yeah. Just so
Yeah,
taxpayers
well,
can hear that, see that.
Yeah, as contractors, our price that we give is a flat cost. We pay for everything: fuel, taxes, employees, workman's comp, everything is in our budget for that daily rate. For the Viper system.
Okay.
Now, when they come from out of state, they get their gas, reimbursed, and their lodging, these fire departments get a lot of perks. And also we have to pay for the backfill. So if they left a station with 5 men on an engine, they're going to backfill it with 5 people to take care of their vacant spots at that station. And we have to pay the difference of, depending on who it is, you have to be reimbursed again. So what our cost, people look at it and say, you guys are just too expensive. Well, if you really sit down and do the math, that these fire departments and all their perks is way more than what we are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like when a cooperator goes to an incident, they get supplies. Whereas the private contractor does not get those supplies. Their daily rate is gas. I think they feed you guys, right, Dylan?
Yep.
Dana?
Yes.
They're at an incident, they feed and lodge.
Yeah.
So whether that's
I
giving you a
see.
spot to put up a tent, or if it's a very small incident where they don't have an incident command center set up, then it might be lodging.
I see. Okay. So here is a question coming from, they say they're not putting their name down. It's coming from a person that says that they are an incident commander. I guess
Let's
folks
hear
are
it.
putting it over here, but not on here so folks can see it. He says, suppose, I don't know if the person has just said, should an incident commander ever have to wait for an Arizona resource determination before ordering an urgently needed private resource? So they're talking about you all. Should they have to wait?
They won't have to wait. because the private contractor is going to be ready. They're going to be local.
I only speak for myself in all of this, right? So I'm not representing all contractors, although I think from the whole community that I speak with, I probably represent at least a few of their views.
Yes.
What we're talking about is just closest available resource. And so if you have a state system that is then saying we will order fire departments or fire engines or resources from New Mexico or West Texas, before we, like if you have a fire in Flagstaff and you have, let's say, 20 engines right there, that you should use those engines before emptying out 40 or 50, maybe 100 engines from New Mexico to come over, which is one, it's going to cost more because we are cheaper just by your daily rate. Two, the response time that it takes for them to get over there creates how much additional burn damage. So my take is just there has to be a way to leverage closest available resource. And if they do not get this system set up in a way, so how does our business work? What is our model? There used to be a whole bunch of consistency. So up until 3 years ago, contractors, at least at the federal level, were called out prior to fire departments, right? And a lot of different regions, the fire departments are not as involved. As Region 3, the fire departments are very involved in these wildland fire responses. And so what that has done is it's taken a business model where you have consistency in days, you have repetition, preparedness, you have people getting massive experience on the same type of engines, and you now have an environment where decisions are changed. For instance, that huge decision to put contractors behind fire departments, that was made 2 weeks before the contract came out, after I had already bought 7 additional engines. And I said, this is going to impact my business by probably 60, 70%. There is no consideration or thoughtfulness in terms of the contractor community to be able to plan, to have consistency. They basically give you points based off of what year is your engine, how much can it pump, instead of performance reviews, consistency of engines, and engine staff or firefighting staff. So to me, there's just a whole better way if you want to make this community actually work and have this additional firefighting force when you need it. It cannot be a very last resort where we have lost money 2 of the last 3 years. We've been doing this for 17 years. This is not going to be a business where you're going to have people in Region 3 stick around, at least in engines and firefighters, if there is not a better system. And the system should be better for the taxpayer. It should create better response times, and it should be a higher level of quality for a lower price. That I think is the overall goal if we did this right.
So I'm glad you brought up the taxpayer part. I mentioned the fire that burnt over 538,000 acres in the Coconino area. I'm sure that some of y'all fought in that, or you were part of the work to put it out, and we do thank you for that. However, what I've been seeing as a state legislator, the aftermath when we're talking about that, and for example, in Flagstaff. After the fires put out, and we talked about this earlier, the flooding comes, and that's the true cost. What I believe that we see in these fires. So we're talking about like home infrastructure, emergency evacuation shelters, loss of dollars in tourism. We know the Grand Canyon is in Flagstaff area, and folks stay in Flagstaff for hotels if they can't get a hotel in Williams when they're looking at the Grand Canyon. Smoke related issues and debris removal, insurance claims. So there is a lot that after the fires put out that we are sucking up as a state. And just in that fire alone, $109 million went to that for cleaning up. So I think folks that are on here, what I'm kind of hearing is that we need the private contractors to kind of drive down some of the costs to taxpayers. Now we've got another question that that popped up on this screen. Eric, you are a brave person putting this on this screen. Anybody can answer this question if they like. What I was referring to is the island fire just a few weeks ago. Arizona is my lovely community and has 2 dozers sitting in a Parker in Parker, Arizona, and they're not utilized on an incident that could have been knocked out quickly, but the dozer's private contract dozer came from the Phoenix area. Does anybody want to speak? And I know we touched on the dozer. It seems like the dozer question keeps coming up.
Well, the dozers that's a unique situation is the dozers. Not everyone can run a dozer on a fire. That takes, a specialty. And of course, if the incident manager wishes to have a specific kind of dozer, that could have been the situation. So looking at it from a 30,000 foot level, I want to say, for example, maybe that incident commander required a specific kind of dozer, and the ones that were sitting in Parker, Arizona were not that kind of dozer. So I don't know enough about that situation, but when the incident commander says, I need this specific item to go and put the fire out here, he needs to be able to get that. Type 3s and type 6 engines, I think, are relatively similar. There might be some differences, but if you've got one type 3 that's 5 miles from the fire, and then you've got another type 3 that's 50 miles from the fire, which one does that IC want? I would assume the IC would want the one that's closest available.
I see. I'm glad you brought up incident commander, because we have another one. Assuming it's from the same person, because they're not, for whatever reason, I guess they don't want to say their name. The question is, how do we create accountability without slowing emergency response? This is coming from an incident commander. And first of all, tell us what an incident commander is, because I'm getting some questions. What is an incident commander? Can y'all, anyone can answer that. What's an incident commander? And then if I need to read that question again, let me know.
Go, Dylan.
I'd be happy to say the incident commander is going to be basically the top person running the fire incident, right? So they're responsible for running the sections chief and all of the different operations that are going on. Okay. They're responsible for making all the big calls and putting the team and structure in place, which then is doing all the ordering and fighting the fire, feeding the firefighters, the logistics, the public safety communication. It's a pretty expansive job. And so there's different levels. They've got an IC type 1, which is big, very complex, multi-million-dollar a day type fires. Even type 2s are typically in that range. And then you got type 3, type 4, type 5, which really go down in complexity. Okay. So the accountability part, I'm not sure exactly what piece of that accountability they may be asking for. I think that the type of accountability a good system would have is they would have a process and enough focus to make sure that they were able to look at the consistency and quality of the firefighters that are out there and the equipment that people are providing. And so I think there is a big range currently, because there is this total lack of any clarity. It's a very tough business to be involved in. That, there's not really the focus on creating really good standards. Now, if we had a better environment, I think you'd also be able to put much better standards in place. And I think when you look at the total cost of these things and what quicker response times can do for folks, this would be, this would cover in a large portion all the savings, that you can get from this, to just put in that a little additional effort and funding to make sure there is accountability in terms of consistency, quality of personnel, and capability of the private resources that would be going out.
I see.
Dylan, Mr. Blackman, if I could follow up with that real quick. I come from a law enforcement background, so does my brother.
Thanks for your service. Yep.
One thing that I equate this to is if, say you have a domestic violence in Flagstaff, right? Mm-hmm. Are you going to send a police officer from Tucson? Flagstaff? No,
that doesn't make any sense. So
same with an ambulance. You have a wreck on I-40 in Holbrook, you're going to send an ambulance out of Nogales. It makes zero sense to send an apparatus that far across the state when you have resources that are just as qualified, same life-saving abilities, same abilities to do the job, but you're sending them from a much further distance. That's kind of the way that I equate this. The same with a teacher. You want to, if a school gets inundated with students, you don't send a teacher from Tucson to the Hopi Reservation to go teach. That you need the
Yeah.
resources now. You need it fast.
Okay. Okay. Molly, maybe you can answer this. You and I were kind of looking over the statute today.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you have that up. When
can
we're
pull it
talking
up.
about those resources, we were kind of talking about the contract part and the state's responsibility to contractors. If you have, do you have that statute up to read to the folks? Because some of the questions are coming up. One of the questions that came up reminded me of it, and the question is, it's a transparency question. If available, qualified Arizona resources is passed over for an equivalent out of state resource. Should DFFM document the reason why?
Yes. Yeah, they
Okay.
absolutely should. Going and looking at the statute, okay, 37-1302 ARS statute. If you start with A and you go down to number 13, A13, annually develop and implement a comprehensive statewide wildfire response plan for the deployment of state, county, municipal fire district, volunteer fire association, and private fire service provider contract resources to wildfire suppression activities. And it goes on. The statewide wildfire response plan shall take into account anticipated fire condition and fire severity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In here, it specifically states that DFFM will work with private contractors, private fire service providers in regards to resources to suppress wildfires in the state of Arizona. It's in statute.
So I guess that lands on my feet because I'm a legislator. We need to. It sounds like what we need to do is codify that in law.
Yes.
That needs to happen, and it looks like you guys are just blowing it up over here. It's hard for me to keep up. Jeez. Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to interject a little bit here. As far as the feds go, our biggest problem with being dispatched is they never have the same person in that dispatch that knows the area. They'll bring them in from other areas, and they have different rules of dispatching in those areas. So when they come into our region, they're going off what they came from, and they don't know where Benson is versus, where Buckeye is. So we get overlooked a lot just because of that, because they don't know the system and all that. Now, in the old days, when we had state contracts, and I've been doing it since, 98, they knew where we were. We had a contract we signed every year, and they knew where we were. We got dispatched all the time. I would have the FMOs call me right out of, Sierra Vista and say, Dana, get here. We'll worry about resource orders later. That's kind of how we all worked really well together until, a decade ago when certain people came in the state forestry and changed things, and and all of our contracts at that time were null and void. And as much as Mr. Larson and I have gone to Phoenix numerous times to try to talk to people and everything else, and it just goes on deaf's ear. Nothing ever happens.
Oh, I see. Now, were some of you ever told that personally? I know we talked about contracts a little bit. Has anyone, you have the inside baseball and you have your peers that have competed for these contracts that you all are competing for based on the statute. Has anyone ever came to you and told you why your resource was passed over?
So in the state, all their resources are passed over. 90% of private contractors. Now, the state does utilize a dozer or two, but these gentlemen, Seth, Dana, and Dylan, at present, from what I understand, do not do any fire suppression or fuel mitigation work for the state of Arizona. There is no procurement plan. There's no mitigation plan put into place. As a matter of fact, in 13, I mean, there's no comprehensive statewide wildfire response plan that includes private contractors. So what they're doing is working for the Viper contract on the federal side. When a fire will kick off, we're all local. Dana, Seth, me, and Dylan, we're all local. We pay taxes here and we live here. And then there's out-of-state firefighters coming, fighting fires on our terrain. Dylan knows Flagstaff. He could probably fight fire way better in Flagstaff than somebody coming from Oregon because he knows the terrain.
Sure.
And he's trained there.
Sure. So here's two questions, and because you're talking about state versus out of state. The first question is, and anyone can answer this. The first question is, how frequently do you see resources brought into Arizona from out of states during the fire season? And the second question is, and I'll read this again if anybody else wants to take this, are those outside resources being brought in because Arizona resources are exhausted? Or have you seen situations where Arizona resources are still available and they are still bringing in outside resources? I'll read those questions back if you need. It's the latter.
It's the latter. The last question. Yeah. Arizona resources are available and they're bringing in out of state. I think Dylan can probably give his experience, and maybe even Seth and Dana, in regards to being available, being ready, and seeing out of state resources come in on fires that are in their community.
Whoever wants to go first, I have a follow-up to that, but go ahead.
Please.
That happens quite often, Walt. You know, just the way this now works is that we will be called absolutely last. So every single state resource, every fire department that is involved in this will get called out. Doesn't matter if they're out of state or not. Doesn't matter that they cost, you know, a third more, if not more than that, than what we charge. They will come out first, even if it's an extra 2 days, 3 days. I've seen these lists where they have gone through and spent days going through with unable to fill. They're called UTFs, unable to fill before it finally rolls our way. And so, yeah, that absolutely happens all the time. It's just a standard because we are out of that league. We are in a totally different tier. So we will not be called upon until that happens. And also what we see on a lot of these resource orders is certain contracts or state cooperators only, feds only, no contractors. And so there are specific asks at times not to use private resources. And that brings it back to my larger kind of point, which is if we do not have better focus and cooperation within this, you're not creating an environment for contractors to produce high quality, lower costing, better responses for the taxpayer. And that business environment is absolutely necessary to drive up the consistency and the accountability portions of this. So yeah, that's my feedback.
Okay. And there was a follow-up on that. Somebody had a
So not only, and I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago, the governor signed a multi-agency cooperation, I believe with 7 states, the compact agreement that allowed engines and tenders and equipment and resources from Nebraska. And I apologize if I'm quoting this wrong, the states, but Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, that far to come in. Now, on the flip side of that, you're talking about peak burn season, fire weather watches, red flag warnings. I'm a younger guy, I follow social media. I'm watching agencies that are cooperators in the state of Arizona sending task force, in your district, I know, to Northern California with 5 or 6 engines, tenders, probably a 20, 30-man group out of your dispatch area in Northern California, Oregon, Washington, in red flag peak burn season here. And you're sending them out of state, out of region. What does that do for us as a taxpayer if my house catches on fire or my backyard catches on fire.
I see.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's exactly what's happening. So we took the model for the Mina fire and look at what happened at the Mina fire. Look at what happened at the fire in Buckeye, the Hazen fire. I watched those fires very closely. The Hazen fire, like I said, we had out-of-state resources and resources coming from Tucson where Dana could have probably got there faster. Dylan probably could have got there faster. Seth could have probably got there faster and saved the taxpayers money.
Wow.
When a fire gets big, when we get into some type 4s, when we get into type 3s and type 2s, you have air resources that come in. Do you have any idea how much a VLAT drop is? Does anybody? What is it, 100,000 a drop?
What, $100,000?
Oh, yes, Walt. How much is it,
So
Dylan? Do you know?
I used to work for FOSCHEC, the aerial retardant company, in 2005, 6, 7, up until 11. I used to manage the Mesa Gateway tanker base as the fire contractor. I believe then a gallon of retardant was $4.50 a gallon. A VLAT is 10,000 gallons.
Wow.
Plus, not only that, you have flight time of the aircraft, fuel, the overhead resources of air attack, everybody else who's on the fire. You're talking, $100,000 a drop.
Wow.
Yeah. So from what I understand, when I interviewed folks that were on the Buckeye and the Mina fire, which I believe the Hazen fire did have one VLAT. I do know that they had, I think, a sky crane out there, but I'm pretty sure that the Mina fire did. Those fires could have been put out within an hour, and they blew up into these decently large incidents. And these are just recent. I mean, I've got multiple scenarios that I could talk about. I only brought these two with me today because I thought they were significant and they were more recent. But in those situations, if they would have gotten somebody on it, Yarnell should have never sent out their type 3 without a replacement type 3. And then what Seth said, we're sending out a district, our firefighters and our equipment in red flag weather.
I see. So we're going into final questions here because we're coming up on the hour. And these questions, some of y'all can answer this. And this is some questions based on what you were talking about, the what I've heard and listened to you folks talk about. So here are some final questions before we close out. The first question is, if you could change one thing about Arizona's wildfire contracting and dispatch system tomorrow, what would it be? Anyone can answer that.
Mine would be that the local fire departments and the contractors are run through the same qualification system, and that they are dispatched by closest available resource for initial attack and high priority fires. And secondly, they're dispatched based off of value to taxpayer after that, so that we're not having this competition where we're sending and incentivizing departments to send their equipment out of state over private business. If you want to keep this private force, which everybody agrees that we need this additional capability and bandwidth to fight these fires to stay in good health, which it is not right now.
Wow. Second question is, what are the biggest misconceptions people have about private contract firefighters?
Oh, that we're not trained like a fire department, even though we go through the same qualifications. We do the task books. We do everything just like an agency would, being a fire department or the Forest Service. We do the same training.
And we talked about that earlier. And you talked about, like, if you're doing on the federal side, your training is more stringent. There are more checks and balances, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. So yeah,
I would say a good majority of the contractors that are playing ball in the federal system and in the state system have all come from the federal system at some point, or the state system. We've all put our due diligence in and got our task book signed off. But at this point, we all feel like second-class citizens because we've taken off the badge, because we've taken off the shirt or the patch that was on my arm. Now we're second-class citizens because I'm a contractor. The state doesn't want to play ball with me.
I see. Next question is, are are private contract firefighters trying to replace municipal and fire district firefighters or supplement them? That's not my question. That question came through right now. Y'all want me to read it again?
I think those are very different, like, job roles, right? One, for a structure firefighter, they spend 90% of their time on like non-fire activities, right? Or non-structure fire. They're also structure firefighters for the most part. They are now getting into the wildfire game where they're literally called ahead of all contractors, even to go out of state. They are called ahead of us. That's every local fire department that is in the state of Arizona that is involved in this system are ranked higher than us, regardless of the tax costs to the taxpayer. And so I wouldn't say that we're trying to replace any of them. I think what we're doing is trying to make sure there's a consistency in the wildland firefighting force from the private community that is needed. And it's not going to be there if what has happened is that the local departments in the state have really, at least since they have made that change and put them ahead of us, we're down over 70% our days in consistency. So we're not going to stick around and do this much longer if this is the environment of contractor, absolutely last resort, no good communication is what continues.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because it goes into the fairness. And this last question is, what would a fair system look like? And I would like for all of y'all to kind of answer that, because you've all had different types of experiences. So what would a fair system look like?
So from what I've seen, I'm an outsider looking in. This was brought to my attention 2 years ago. How I see a fair system working is everyone working together, because we're all on the same team. Locally, I want to see our local fires get put out and not cost the taxpayers money, burn our houses down, and risk our lives. And so I thought to myself, what could we do? On the 5,000 foot level and the municipal level, I think that local contractors that are within a specific district go and work with that district. They become partners in fuel mitigation and fire suppression. That is what I think would save our money, our towns, our people, and they can do it. They have the equipment to do it.
I see. Thanks.
And, well, Mr. Don Howard just put a thing on there. What about wear and tear? You know, fire department, especially these smaller ones, you know, they got to get 20 years, 25 years out of their apparatus, you know, but they're going out and chasing wildland fires and just beating the tar out of it. You know, now this thing that should last 20, 25 years, now they got to replace it 12 to 15 years, you know, and, you know, these engines that these fire departments buy, you know, they can go anywhere from 300 up to almost $1 million, you know, for these things. So that also saves the taxpayers if they're not going out and putting wear and tear on these things. And that burden falls on us as the contractors. We have to take care of everything.
I see. Anyone else want to answer that question? What would a fair system look like?
And I want to make sure it's clear that the private contractor is not beholden to any district. So if that IC, say in Flagstaff, needed a specific piece of equipment, say from Dana could go up there if he was not in a contract with that municipality, and it would cost the taxpayers less.
I see.
Yeah. Right. I think, you know, the fire departments have they do, you know, EMS and, you know, structure fire. There's some of them that do wildland, and that's okay. We do wildland. That's all contractors do is wildland, you know, and they don't, you know, and I'd like to see at least 1 for 1, you know, to come down to this, you know, 1 state contract, excuse me, and then 1, you know, private go out, and just let's make it equal. You know, let's get contractors instead of relying on the Fed. You know, why doesn't the state just give us a contract and they build their own zone so they know who's in that zone? So if a fire happens like this year, 3 miles down the road, we got fire trucks coming down from Kingman, and all my units are sitting right down here, can't get out. You know, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming on. We do appreciate it. It seems like we're going to have to do a part 2 of this, because I really want to get more into the contract, how that process works. So you all are going to have to do some brainstorming, and so we can talk about some of this. Well, we're definitely going to have you back on the Walt Blackman Show. Want to thank you for everything you do. Want to thank you for your brave souls going into the fires while I'm running out. And Molly, want to thank you for advocating for these folks. And everyone, we do appreciate it. And we'll see you on the flip side, everybody. I'm Walt Blackman, and I want to give some closing comments. So tonight's conversation isn't about the public versus private. It's certainly not about refusing to help other states. It's about asking whether Arizona is making the best possible use of qualified firefighters, engines, and equipment that is already in Arizona. My stand is simple: available, qualified, operational, appropriate, and most importantly, timing. If Arizona resources meet those standards, I believe we should seriously examine whether the resources should receive priority before taxpayer dollars to bring more substantial equipment and resources from another state. That's something we shouldn't be doing. It's called Arizona First. And at the same time, our incident commanders must always retain the authority they get to resource those resources they needed. Arizona First doesn't mean Arizona only. It means that we use our resources smartly. We protect taxpayers, support our firefighters and our private firefighters, the capability, and we make sure that Arizona doesn't burn. So at the end of the day, it's safety first. The right resources at the right time, and Arizona should be fair and have the opportunity to let these folks do their job and save Arizona. Everybody, I'm Walt Blackman. I hope that you enjoy that. Sorry I couldn't get to some of the other questions. We got some lawmakers that are giving some questions, and we got some senators that are giving some questions. That's why we're going to do a part 2. Everybody take care. God bless. This is Walt Blackman, your state representative, holding it down for you, doing what you paid for me to do. Take care, everybody. God bless.